Today, I want to talk about one of the most controversial, tragic, and yet technically gifted professional wrestlers in history. A man who reached the pinnacle of the wrestling world with unmatched skill and determination, but whose personal life was full of pain, struggles, and tragedy. I'm talking about Chris Benoit, a man whose life and death will forever remain etched in wrestling history. Chris was born on May 21, 1967, in Montreal, Canada. His family lived a modest life, but wrestling was in his blood. From a young age, he was obsessed with wrestling, spending hours watching matches on television and practicing moves on a chair in his room. Posters of legendary wrestlers like Dynamite Kid and Bret Hart adorned his walls, and his mind was always imagining himself performing in the biggest wrestling arenas.
To the heavyweight champion of the world, and there he stands, Chris Benoit!
During his early teens, he faced intense and grueling training. Chris attended the Hart Family Wrestling School in Calgary. The training there was incredibly demanding and sometimes brutal. Stu Hart, the legendary trainer, not only focused on technical wrestling skills, but also tested the character and mental toughness of his trainees. Many students quit after just a few days, but Chris persevered with patience, focus, and relentless dedication, rapidly improving his skill.
For the toughness of the rabid Wolverine that he is!
To gain experience and earn money, he traveled to Japan. Wrestling in Japan was harder and more realistic. Chris had to train for long hours and sometimes sleep on buses after matches. The venues were small and packed with passionate fans, but these hardships helped him strengthen his endurance, physical power, and technical skills.
And the Crippler Crossface fought his way to the world's...
After Japan, he went to Mexico and learned the lucha libre style, which taught him fast aerial maneuvers and more artistic moves. Combining his experiences in Japan and Mexico, he developed a unique style: fast, technical, intense, and highly professional.
And ladies and gentlemen, here's a homecoming!
In the 1990s, Chris joined WCW and quickly became known for his technical mastery. He earned the nickname the Canadian Crippler. Despite his smaller frame, his moves were precise and powerful. He became part of the legendary group the Four Horsemen, gaining widespread recognition. Those years were filled with brutal matches, high-risk moves, and performances where Chris often went toe-to-toe with the biggest stars, proving that skill and determination could overcome size.
For Chris Benoit, who grew up right here in Edmonton. Look at this!
After several successful years in WCW, Chris joined WWE, reaching the peak of his career. He partnered with his close friend Eddie Guerrero and became a member of the Radicals. Chris showed that body size doesn't determine greatness. His combination of strength, speed, and technical skill amazed fans and fellow wrestlers alike.
Chris Benoit was going to be here live tonight. He looks like he's in great shape.
The year 2004 marked the pinnacle of his career. At WrestleMania 20, Chris Benoit won the World Heavyweight Championship. The moment he stood in the ring holding the championship with Eddie by his side, crying tears of joy, became one of the most emotional moments in wrestling history. That achievement was the result of years of grueling training, injuries, sacrifices, and unrelenting effort. Fans around the world remember that moment vividly, seeing both his struggle and triumph in the ring.
Amazing athlete back in that very ring. Well, a lot of people have been waiting a long time to see Benoit back in.
But Chris's personal life was filled with suffering. His wrestling style caused repeated head and body trauma. Later, doctors revealed that his brain resembled that of an 85-year-old Alzheimer's patient. Years of concussions, stress, painkillers, and steroid use severely affected his mental and physical health.
You know, a few months ago, I was drafted by Vince McMahon to be on SmackDown.
In 2005, the sudden death of his close friend Eddie Guerrero struck Chris hard. He sank into deep depression, became withdrawn, and no longer smiled or joked with fans as he used to. His family life became tense as well. His wife Nancy and son Daniel were his only sources of hope, but the combination of mental pressure and brain damage eventually pushed him to a tragic decision.
You know, it sure as hell feels good to be back.
Chris also had a close relationship with Rey Mysterio. They shared the ring and backstage life, with Chris acting as a mentor to Rey. Even this bond, however, could not relieve the mounting mental and emotional strain he was under.
Well, there is absolutely no way.
In June 2007, tragedy struck. Over the course of 3 days, Chris first killed his wife Nancy and his 7-year-old son Daniel, and finally took his own life. When the police arrived, the world was in shock. This incident became one of the darkest and most shocking moments in sports history, prompting endless debates about causes and responsibility.
The WWE is going to come through my hometown.
WWE's reaction was initially to hold a tribute for him, but when the full truth emerged, all footage, matches, and references to Chris Benoit were removed, and his name was erased from WWE history.
Benoit, as I said, grew up here in Edmonton, a great story.
Chris Benoit is still remembered as one of the most technically skilled wrestlers ever, a man who reached the top through talent and relentless effort. Yet personal tragedy, depression, brain injuries, and years of pressure led to one of the most devastating incidents in sports history. This is the story of Chris Benoit, a man who reached the pinnacle of professional wrestling through skill, determination, and love for the sport, but ultimately succumbed to mental and physical damage, resulting in a tragedy that shocked the world. If you've stayed with me this far, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell, because this is just one of the real, behind-the-scenes stories of professional wrestling. I've got more stories that you'll never see on TV, tales of rise, fall, struggle, and sometimes even redemption. So stay tuned and experience the real world of professional wrestling with me.